My name is James Payne. I'm the chapter staff person with the East Tennessee chapter. And I'm going to go ahead and say a few things for our sponsors, give you an overview of our presenters for today. But first of all, thank you everyone for coming out. I know it's a new venue for coming out here. But next year, most of our venues will be probably the Foundry. We'll be here at the meeting. So without any further ado, we have a couple of upcoming events. This month, on the 26th of October, we have Weatherization Day. It's actually going to be in conjunction with SEED, which is one of the groups that's responsible partly for the presentation today. November the 15th, next month's presentation, is going to be Fenestration and Daylighting, and that's going to be with Kim Shin. We're also going to have a stormwater design and case studies presentation in Johnson City. And we're also seeking speakers for our 2014 education series. I'd like to thank the following sponsors for today. We have at the silver level, Ecological Energy Systems, Green Spaces, Partners Development and Train. At a bronze level, we have Benefit Richter's Design Build Company, Blaine Construction, Brewer Ingram Fuller Architects, Elizabeth Easton Architecture, Facility Systems Consultants, Hickory Construction, Johnson & Galley Construction Incorporated, Knoxville Community Development Corporation, Marvin Concepts, McCarty Holsaple McCarty Architects, the O'Hanlon Group, Oak Ridge Associated Universities, S&M Sales and Marketing Consultants, and Shaw Contract Group. Our two speakers for today are Rick Held. Rick Held is the co-founder of the Knoxville Energy Alliance and Partnership for Green Jobs, a nonprofit organization focused on developing green jobs, energy efficiency, and renewable energy programs for homeowners and small businesses. Rick has been a long-time community organizer throughout Appalachia and has just launched Teen Energy Blog, a site for reporting, analysis, and commentary on the business, economics, and politics of energy and sustainability in the Tennessee Valley region. Our other presenter is Don Horton. He's a sustainability coordinator with the firm McCarty Holsaple McCarty and has been a chairman and treasurer of the U.S. Green Building Council East Tennessee chapter. And he is a lead accredited professional and received his architecture degree from Clemson University. And I think one more thing before we get started, Jim, did you want to say a word about what you have upcoming?
Good afternoon. Appreciate the opportunity to mention something you might be interested in doing. November the 5th, we're going to have a tour, go down and tour the VW plant in Chattanooga, the brand new plant that's there. And we recently had a meeting with the Association of Energy Engineers, which is the group I'm with, where the manager for energy engineering came and spoke and went through all the programs and stuff that they've done, and they're the only platinum certified energy conservation company in the United States for automobiles. They're very energy conscious. They have a 3 megawatt solar field out there, so they went in a big way, that sort of thing. So it's very modern and very efficient and very interesting. So we're going to get a tour together. You can see me after the meeting if you have an interest in going on the tour, and I'll help you get lined up to go to it. Thank you very much.
Thanks. All right, Don and Rick.
Thanks, James. I think we'll just stay down here and not get up all walk. About 3 months ago or so, Rick and Dick Trowbridge approached me one Sunday morning and said they had this great idea about how to do some weatherization programs. And in those conversations, we were trying to get the USGBC involved in it, and that is the main reason for this presentation today, is to let you know, and Rick will describe what we're talking about and planning, and hopefully we will get a lot of involvement from the USGBC in this process. And as lead in that, I'm going to talk a little bit about weatherization, why it's so important to us, and as far as the whole energy conservation process that we're trying to go through as part of USGBC. I got involved in the USGBC very early. Our office has been a member since 2000, and my lead accreditation was in 2003. So I have been involved in it and have seen it is a reason for making architecture fun and to quantify what we're doing about trying to be more sustainable. So USGBC has been very important to what I've been trying to do over the last several years. And on this slide here, everybody has seen these statistics before. The environmental side there, 40% of the U.S. energy is consumed by buildings. Several years ago, I decided, where did that number come from? And you see it as 39%, 41%, 40%. It varies depending on who puts the number together. And I always thought about energy use in buildings and equated that to big commercial buildings. What, that 40%, I think, adds these big buildings that are using all this energy. But when you go back and dig through the numbers and go to CDEX and look at where that 40% came from, about 22, 23% of that is on the residential side of building construction. And then thinking about it, that's a whole bunch of little dominoes sitting out there, all of them having their issues. And it's not like, we think LEED, we're going to certify big buildings, a platinum building. That's great. We're 40% better on energy usage on those buildings. But we have all of these houses going up in our communities that hopefully with the change in building codes, we're getting a lot better in the way they're being constructed. But we've got a tremendous amount of houses that are sitting out there on the ground that are leaking lots of energy. They are in the southeast in particular, where energy was so cheap. The construction, they did not worry about the energy performance of the structures. So we've got a lot to make up in doing, getting to the point where houses, residential construction is not being such a big drain on our whole energy economy. A quick slide, I'm just going to go through some slides, diagrams of, where the energy goes in a typical structure. Slides that I just pulled off the DOE website, and further breakdown. The numbers, the percentages don't match up exactly right, but the graphic is right. The openings in the buildings through the uninsulated walls or poorly insulated walls, roofs, attics. Plumbing penetrations, 13% is more than windows. And it starts breaking down and starts looking at, what major things can be done in the residential that if we think of low-hanging fruit, but maybe the low-hanging fruit is in a different location. Fireplaces are fairly simple to deal with. We hear a lot of information on electrical outlets, but according to this DOE diagram, electrical outlets are a lot less important maybe than plumbing penetrations. All of the holes that are going through your walls up to your attic and are never plugged. Leaky ducts. Further, a breakdown of kind of the same information in graphically a different way, and what the energy auditors start looking at. And we're talking about a process, and Rick will talk more about it, the process that we go through. In weatherization, you need to know what you have as you begin to weatherize the house. So the first thing is have an audit. Bruce, sure. And Bruce, chime in here, because I'm treading on. I'm from the commercial side, treading on the residential side here. So please chime in. But the energy audit is very important to determine where to put the resources in getting the most performance out of your structure. Some of the tools that are being used, and not necessarily all the tools, are the infrared cameras now, doing color imaging to see where the hot spots and cold spots are in the structure. The blower door test, I guess you could say it's the definitive test as far as the performance. I've had success with the little digital thermometer. And I play a lot in my own house of going around in the wintertime, and we had the walls foamed, but I can still see with the digital thermometer where they miss some spots or where there's a short circuit in some of the insulation. And you know, the equivalent of having leaky joints in the house or gaps in the house is like having a window open throughout the winter. And that's something that we need to think about. As I was saying, low-hanging fruit, we think of, yeah, we'll caulk the house. Well, that's an easy thing to do. But through the energy audit, we need to make sure there's not a big hole somewhere in the structure that we are overlooking. Example, on our house that we've been renovating for the last 20 years. It's about an 85-year-old house, I think. And we kept trying to figure out why the kitchen was so cold. And, you know, inside the kitchen cabinets in the winter, the heat thermometer was saying 30 degrees. And we just kept insulating, couldn't figure out. We were renovating the kitchen finally. And the contractor that was helping us drove a nail in the wall and we heard glass break. So we started uncovering, and in probably 60s or 70s, aluminum siding had been put on the house. And the kitchen had been turned into a early 70s kitchen at that time, complete with the faux wood and everything. We opened up the wall and there was a window in the wall. And not only was the window in the wall, but the window was open. So we need to inspect our houses carefully as we go through this. And I would say that a digital image of the house would have helped in that case. It works a lot better. As I was saying, you know, caulking is a simple thing that can be done, and people can really jump into that and just caulk the devil out of a house. And we need to make sure that that is where our efforts need to go. Insulation again throughout the structure and evaluating the walls, the ceilings, the floors, how much insulation and where it's best to be put. Getting to the nitty-gritty details. It's very important and I think, Bruce, when you did our energy audit in our house, that you have all these conduits and pipes coming up through the walls, and those are great little chimneys, but just sucking the heat or cooling out of your house, and things like that need to get into that level as far as sealing up the structure. And hopefully in new construction, we're doing that now. And we're targeting all of those things and making structures a lot tighter and using energy recovery ventilators and things like that to bring in air, but temper as we're sending it in or out. And then we need to start developing a workforce to do all of this work. And that's the segue to Aaron Gill, who is with the city. I'm glad to see that Aaron is back with the city. 5 years?
3 years.
3 years. Seems like a long time to that, yeah. And Aaron's going to get up and say a bit about what the city is getting involved with, and then we'll move on to Rick. So, Aaron?
Thanks, and I'm not on the formal agenda, so I'm going to keep my comments pretty brief. But Rick and Don asked me to say a few words about a new initiative that the city is getting involved with that I think adds some good context to the discussion today. As many of you, I think, are aware already, we were selected last year to be an IBM Smarter Cities Challenge grant recipient. And what that meant was that we got the expert recommendations, expert consulting really, from 6 IBM experts who came, lived in Knoxville for 3 weeks, got to know specifically this challenge that we have of a huge amount of money being invested to help lower income residents in Knoxville just pay their utility bills. And at the same time, a robust selection of weatherization efforts that are being led by folks such as Rick and the USGBC, as well as the CAC and some of these more established community partners. So what we asked IBM to do was create a roadmap and help us think through the challenge of connecting those 2 segments of our community. To give you a sense of the scale of this problem, this challenge, I will say, the Knoxville community put $4.8 million plus into helping people pay their utility bills. And the average utility bill that payment went to for a family, a homeowner, or a tenant in the rental community was $287 a month. I don't pay that much on my utility bill because I know about efficiency, I know what to do, I know how to weatherize, I know how to turn off lights, I know the impact of those actions. So we have this huge investment that's coming. We think it's even bigger because that $4.8 million does not include the charitable contributions from individuals and churches that do not cycle through programs like maybe Project Help, which is, collecting data on how much is being spent. So there's a huge amount of money. At the same time, we have an aging infrastructure that Don talked about. We have many homes that were built when energy was cheap and efficiency wasn't a concern. That's driving up the cost of living for many residents who really are the most vulnerable to not being able to absorb that increased cost. So what the city has done with these IBM recommendations is collect stakeholders, really, people who are already out trying to solve these issues, maybe not together, but independently trying to take action to solve one of these 2 problems, either helping people with utility bills or help them reduce their utility bills. And we're trying to come up with a systematic solution where we can stop simply managing poverty, but really helping to put more than just a Band-Aid on these requests for assistance. And what that means is, in large part, finding a way where the organizations can work together, where if you're a homeowner that has needed assistance in the past, that you are connected with the weatherization efforts that are going on so that we're not serving different communities that really should be doing the same. And thinking through ways that we can connect, and we'll talk about this, connect that sort of opportunity with job creation. So we're investing in our properties, hopefully raising property values. We're helping solve a lasting issue that's created a source of just hardship for communities and those who really can't afford to pay high utility bills that are higher than they should be, quite frankly, in a lot of cases. And then ultimately trying to create a good economic approach where we can bring jobs into the equation and try to create a sustainable solution. So IBM's recommendations were to harness the data, so take all this and figure out what we know and what we don't know and try to manage that. Find some funding opportunities, create some educational resources, and engage landlords and property owners. So we have work groups that we've created to address each of those challenges and recommendations and try to think through those recommendations systematically, come up with action items, and then take steps to catalyze that implementation. So we'd love to have you involved. Those work groups are open to the public. Rick's involved. I know folks that are here have talked with us throughout this program. So if you're interested, give me an email, give me your card, and I'll connect you with the dates of those working group meetings. It's a 2-year effort, so we do want some active participation from those people who are engaged, and we'd love to, have your insight at the table. So, thanks.
And as Rick was telling me about the program and talking about all of the participants in the program, there was one organization that was not mentioned. Why aren't we part of this effort in a more organized way of getting involved in that? So, Rick, lead us into that.
Okay. So the whole point of this is by the end of, I don't know, maybe this week, maybe USGBC's logo will be up there along with the rest of them, and maybe not. So Knoxville Energy Alliance and Partnership for Green Jobs was established about 2011. There were a number of grassroots organizations who were concerned with various aspects of clean energy and green jobs and energy efficiency, primarily for low-income communities. And so there was a process in the early part of 2011 where a number of groups, beyond the ones who are formally now involved, which right now we have socially equal, energy efficient development, we have the chair here, Jim Gray today, which has been working for about the last 4 years with inner city young people to prepare them for successful careers in energy efficiency and clean energy jobs. Pre-apprenticeship program is one of their main ways of doing that. Also, statewide organizing for community empowerment through their Green Jobs Committee was very interested in this issue. The Tennessee Solar Energy Industries Association is very interested in sort of the big picture with solar being ultimately accessible and affordable for, again, low and moderate income communities in the long run. Tennessee Alliance for Progress, based in Nashville, has had a statewide effort to develop green jobs. And then the Tennessee Solar Energy Association, based out of UT, was very interested in different models for doing this. But back in 2011, there was a process with not only these groups, but sort of a broader consortium of green jobs and clean energy allies, such as the Sierra Club, Southern Alliance for Clean Energy, thank you. I'm very involved in this issue. And a few others. And so what came out of that whole process was looking at how this work got done in other areas, how to organize in a cohesive way with all of these different elements to try to do programs on the ground that actually work on clean, which expand access to clean energy, expand access to workforce development programs that deal with clean energy. CAC locally has done that on a certain level, but it's never been on a sustainable level. Just these kinds of programs have typically been at the mercy of government funding programs, political sort of winds changing. The more successful programs in other parts of the country, such as say in Oregon, we're looking at ways to have some good pilot programs for doing this in a more sustainable fashion that actually got all these stakeholders around the table, finance, workforce development, contractors, etc., get them all around the table and kind of come up with programs. So as a result of that, Keep Green Jobs came up with a program framework about how to potentially do a pilot program here in Knoxville that might eventually lead to a more sustainable, larger scale effort. How do I so not often deal with these clickers, so bear with me if I go backwards here. So formally, Keep Green Jobs was created as a consortium of nonprofit stakeholders concerned with energy efficiency and renewable energy while creating green jobs, especially thinking about low and moderate income neighborhoods. So fast forward to summer of this year, the Environmental Concerns Committee at Tennessee Valley Unitarian Church had a relationship with SEED, one of the organizational members of KEEP, and reached out to SEED to see how they could get deeper involved in ways to help SEED accomplish its mission. And one thing led to another, and the next thing we knew, we had a project on our hands called the Green Church Green Jobs Initiative. So this It's just very recently gotten off the ground, this partnership between Keep Green Jobs and the Unitarian Church. This is, we've got brochures over here that you can help yourselves to, but this, basically the appeal we're making through the Unitarian Church is a 4-point interest with this program. We're looking for folks who want to save homeowners, specifically homeowners in the Unitarian Church or in that broader community who want to save money on their utility bills, do their part to reduce climate warming while enabling low-income youth to have a living wage, green job apprenticeship opportunity, as well as giving the church a chance to work with low-income communities of color for environmental justice and economic justice. So specifically, the objectives we set out for in this program were to weatherize or solarize 5 to 10 homes by the end of this year. And we're at this point, we've got 2 homes that are at the early stages of this process. And in the process of doing this, we're creating green jobs from folks primarily exclusively actually out of C's pre-apprenticeship program, but setting up apprenticeships for low-income youth from our communities. And then this is key, the most relevant part for Green Building Council. We're attempting to do this in a way where we have some deep and serious measurement and verification, because we're kind of, the timing is such where the city is beginning to look at models for doing this on the ground, and we want to be able to feed our information, our learnings into what the city will do in terms of getting other stakeholders together to see what's possible in terms of a model. So some details about this particular program, the Green Church, Green Jobs. Here's the process. 5 parts to it. There's the pre-qualification, the evaluation, the estimation, the weatherization / solarization, and the verification. And we're seeing a pattern here. So pre-qualification, we're looking for this particular pilot project, this small-scale demonstration project. We're looking for homeowners or business owners who are KUB customers, who have their own ability to finance a weatherization or solar project, probably in the neighborhood of $3,000 to $12,000. The research has shown that somewhere there's a sweet spot in there between, for a typical house in this area of the country, somewhere between $3,000 to $5,000 is about the investment you would make, assuming you've never done any weatherization on an older house, say before 1970. That $5,000 investment is going to maximize your return on your energy savings up to as much as 20%. So we're not interested in just doing weatherization for weatherization's sake. In fact, there have been some programs out there in the past where there have to be, for instance, some federal money available to just have some low-income folks to do heating HVAC systems, but not that that's not a good thing, but there was never any kind of testing done to see whether, doing that, it was never coupled with any kind of energy efficiency measures in terms of making sure that HVAC wasn't just heating and cooling the very outdoors. So we're looking to do it in a more comprehensive manner. So at this, for the sake of this demonstration program, we're looking for homeowners. Renters at this point are not going to be qualified, but it's just trying to keep it simple for a demonstration project. We're looking for homeowners who are going to agree to limited availability for publicity. Community education is key to this whole effort. We want folks who would be willing to have pictures taken of their sort of before and after pictures and a lot of media interviews. Of course, we need access to utility bill records, and I think possibly, I'm not well versed in the blower door test method in terms of doing the most comprehensive test. You want to get that kind of information plugged in for your analysis, see what kinds of gains we can make. And so we'll have we've got an evaluation committee, a assuming we get overwhelmed with applicants, we'll try to pick the most qualified candidates based on who can benefit the most in terms of energy savings. So the first step after a homeowner potential candidate contact our outreach coordinator, Dick, who's here today, and did that initial screening, made sure they met all those pre-qualification criteria. The next step is to schedule a TBA, in-home energy evaluation. I'm sure some folks, many folks in this room know what that is. It's a walkthrough of an evaluation of different issues in a homeowner's house, but it's not done by a certified energy auditor. But as a result of that, you get a report, the homeowner gets a report, which gives a list of suggested measures that can be taken to maximize your energy efficiency in your home. And to do that, a homeowner is required to pay a $50 fee, reimbursable if the homeowner does at least $150 of upgrades that are on that report. And those upgrades are done by a qualified contractor, qualified energy. So then the next step, based on the energy evaluation, we set up an estimate for a contractor to come out, at least one, as many as 3 contractors to come out and give a homeowner an estimate based upon that in-home energy evaluation. And what's key to this and sort of unique, we haven't seen this done in any other programs that we know of, we're asking the contractors to factor in the cost of a certified HERS rating, a before and after test. And so that the contractor is going to factor that test, that HERS rating, into the bid. HERS? HERS. Did I say that? Our home energy rating system. Thank you. Right. We've got some other experts who can explain that. I keep looking forward to Bruce. He'll chime in at the right time. Thank you. So a before and after HERS rating, and so this ensures that the work that gets done is actually kind of getting us real gains in energy efficiency and money savings. So then, for this particular pilot program, we're getting the homeowners to secure their own financing to do these projects. So then, assuming the homeowner gets a bid that they like, the next step is to have the contractor come in and do the weatherization and or the solarization. Oops, too far. And then afterwards, after the work gets done, the HERS rater comes in for the post-retrofit test, and assuming that test tests out positive, then the contractor is paid in full. A key aspect of this program, of all the workforce development aspect of this is about the contractors agreeing to hire 1 or more apprentices from SEED's pre-apprenticeship program and paying them a living wage. So they're going to factor that into their bid also. And they're also agreeing to some quality specific training agreements, so that we're sure that the SEED apprentices are going to kind of have a leg up in terms of understanding the building trades and also specifically weatherization trades and skills for these projects. Of course, the contractors are licensed and insured. And that's the last slide. Yes.
Under qualification, I don't know if this is an inappropriate or infuriating question, but every time I see the sentence renters not qualified, I'm a person who's educating myself in these issues and, you know, have a full-time job and some sort of income, but I rent.
Sure.
And I'm unable to you know, implement a lot of these changes that I'm learning more about and I'm increasingly interested in. And so is there a smart answer, or glad to see the city leaning into this? You know, I'm sure, you know, solution will begin to reveal itself, but any smart or short-term or long-term
Well, the first thing I should say is when we say, which the actual verbiage is renters are not qualified at this time, we don't mean that on a personal level, that renters are not wonderful people that your point's well taken, that probably ultimately this particular program is just a very small scale project that we're going to try to learn from, and it doesn't have all the elements of what we ultimately like to see in terms of ultimately serving low-income people, but it's a step in that direction. And actually, you know, if we're working, we're trying to start out simple, and so if we're working with homeowners who can afford to finance these programs on their own, and that's just a simple way to begin to implement a model on the ground. Just 5 houses that own. Now, ultimately, do we want to see tenants who can weatherize their houses, or not their houses, but their apartments? That's a little bit more complicated process, which actually the city is addressing through the Smarter Cities Challenge process. But it's a little more simple to have just a single homeowner deal with the financing, because there's all the issues about incentives for the landlord, or no incentives for the landlord to do that kind of work. So ultimately, that's the direction we want to go. We want to include tenants, but again, we're at a very small scale demonstration project for this.
Thank you.
There are some things that renters can do, simple things like the lighting, CFLs and LEDs, but a lot of people don't think about toilets. There's a lot of retrofit kits to make a regular toilet dual flush. You can literally change the aerator on the faucets with very minimal amount of money. There's a lot of things that renters can do, low-hanging fruit.
Sure.
I appreciate individual options. I am an organizer by profession. I work with soccer, and I'm interested in a larger conversation that would encourage landlords, to invest. So I appreciate the individual solution. I'm certainly part of those conversations, and I'm just hoping that it stays on the radar screen, for people in the future. And thanks to the city for leading into that.
Good to have you.
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
There was something that Aaron said earlier that point was well taken. You mentioned that the average utility bill for the emergency assistance was $287, and your bill was
My bill is not even that, and I'm a renter as well.
Yeah.
Single, standalone, old home. And so what we recognize is that a good portion of it is investment. You have to have a landlord to be investing. I'm fortunate that my landlord has put in a dual flush toilet, so that is helping me, and that was not something I had to do. But at the same time, a lot of it's behavior. And so we're looking within these work groups at identifying the specific education points. So there's this educational for the component for the landlords, but then there's also education for the tenants, and that involves both the sort of what can you bring into your rental house that will help reduce your bills. Behavior, because so many times bills are driven not just by inefficient technology, but by behavior. And specifically, if you're a larger family in a home, your bill's going to be driven up simply because you have more people using the shower, using the toilet. Exactly. So, really trying to raise the sophistication of the conversation in Knoxville so that we're addressing those issues, and families and renters, homeowners can look at the specific things that they can do and have that apply very deeply to their specific situation. That's what we'd like to accomplish anyway.
If you spend the money on the things I mentioned, you can take it with you to the next place you rent. If you keep the other parts handy and put them back in before you leave.
The one thing, I'm going to get to you next, Bruce, but the one thing I thought about when Aaron mentioned that having an awareness of very easy things that you can do are really important. But the investment, so it's like, historically we've had like the lowest of the low income homeowners, and maybe tenants to some extent, eligible for things like through CAC programs, government federally funded programs, for things like maybe new HVAC units, and maybe sometimes in a good year, Congress is being so crazy. Things like windows and doors, maybe some insulation. It's probably the height of that was during the whole American benefited from, but typically those are for the lowest of the low income folks, and those are basically entitlement programs, so there's no out-of-pocket expense for the homeowner. On the other end of the spectrum, you have higher income folks who can afford things like the credit scores, or have great, good enough savings where they can make their own investment out of pocket to do these, to take these measures. But you have this great middle of people who own homes who, live in, a lot of folks live paycheck to paycheck, and could really stand to benefit a lot in terms of their having those high utility bills, but don't have the upfront capital, the out-of-pocket expense, or the lower credit score to be able to do the improvements that would really benefit them. So ultimately, what we're looking at is some financing models to make these things, to expand access to these kind of projects. But in the meantime, again, for this particular model we're looking at, we're not really targeting low-income folks. We're targeting folks who can afford the out-of-pocket expenses and financing, but ultimately so it's a way to just kind of demonstrate how stakeholders can work together to do something, and then hopefully take it to the next level. So I'll turn it over to you for the next thing.
Well, we,
I forgot to call him Bruce.
All right.
Bruce.
Well, I got a couple things I might offer. Currently, AmeriFirst is got a HUD program that is financing energy conservation and housing. They just won this. It's not something that's really been running yet, so it might time in very well with this program.
Did you say AmeriQuest?
AmeriFirst. It's a local, it's a bank, basically. They're the only lender. Apparently, they applied for this for one, a bunch of money. And it's designed to incentivize exactly what this is all about, help pay for financing and all that. So I'm not exactly clear. I know I'm sort of in the mix as their test in, test out provider. So that's something to look at, and I can get a little over that. The second thing I want to put in, I don't know if you're familiar with Home Performance of Energy Star.
Sure.
The EOE program has all bells and whistles in regards to existing homes. And I know that it's always been a whole area for me personally, because we have 130 million residents in the United States right now. The statistic that still sticks in my head is that 75% of the housing that's going to exist in 2050 is already here. So if you look at the energy involved in that, and you say if you could actually take an existing home and get 50% of the energy out of it. So let's say that's $1,500 to $2,000 a year saved annually over 130 million homes. You're talking billions of dollars, and probably the best form of distributed power that you ever created. So obviously I'm all for this, and if I can help anybody, please let me know. And I'll get you.
You will.
Yeah. Well, that was, and the financial institutions I think are key to get plugged into this. Because
They'll drive the bus, and they can actually see a dollar.
yeah, if they could. And I wish we could get them to understand that making loans on energy efficiency is good business for them.
Well, the Canadians figured it out. I can't believe it.
Yeah. No, everybody's in trash either.
That's right.
Okay, where we wanted to go with this is, as I was saying in the beginning, our chapter doesn't seem to be very involved in this effort. I know we've got the recycling, the weatherization program coming up in a few weeks, but to get the chapter energized over some projects, and this is a great one to try to get people more involved and maybe more involved in doing projects than doing an organization kind of stuff. But shifting to getting our membership more involved. Maybe not in committees, but maybe in projects like this. So, want to throw some stuff, or ask for you guys, throw some stuff at us, and how can we get involved with this program or other programs too. And we'll try to get some more into those chapters. So, I guess getting involved in this program, how do we,
one of the problems with the guidance program is convincing people because of the expensive. And that's one area where we were hoping that we could have empower you guys in. For my ideal, we have 3 positions before and after, but we could use any help we could. It's very difficult to convince people as to why we need leadership without going through non-presentation. So that's the one area that at least there are some ideas that you might possibly have how we can do this.
It's really kind of interesting when we talk to folks from the church there, but they really like the idea of helping folks from the hood kind of get a leg up in terms of a career with a future, something that they're really interested in. Reach out. This kind of thing. It's almost like things like whether wanting to be involved in this program and work in their house is almost secondary, whether they're actually kind of assurance that they're actually making an investment that's going to be a return on their investment. And so we're trying to convince them with the energy audits that that's going to make that happen. So we're really interested in the international verification aspect of what this is. I guess it's a hard sell, but we need that.
Can we have all the years? And we talk about wrapping up finance. Is there a learning program that we could start both at the level of doing the work and the level of doing verification?
Yes. Yeah, wow. We're going to think through how that would work, but we definitely need technical assistance, making sure that we're doing this right. You need some direct involvement. Specifically beyond that.
Well, I think supporting the city program and getting involved with this whole group of groups that are having fun development and trying to be more involved in that process. Focus on education, focus on getting forward, like the things.
Aaron, did you say there was some representation from?
Yeah, so that Eason was interviewed by IBM, who provided me with a friend, and then James has also recently signed up to be on our education worker. Is that right?
Correct.
One of them, education worker data, but, so James is involved there, and as individuals or as an organization, we want to hear from you through this process. You are experts and you're in the community working on the ground with these issues, and so we ask for active participation, but we would love to see more involvement from your group as a whole or as the individual entities that you represent.
What are the workers?
Yes, there's 4. The first one is data oriented, so it's identifying sort of the holistic set of data needs that the program has and then coming up with a solution to manage, organize, analyze that data. There's a funding work group that similarly is looking at what the data needs would be going forward as ideas emerge of what programs would look like. How would we fund those programs? How can we leverage some funding sources or think creatively about funding these sorts of programs that we haven't been able to achieve in the past? There's the education work group that's going to be, again, looking at all of the different aspects aspects of education and how to reach the different groups that we want to be educated on these issues and coming up with compelling curricula. And finally, we have the property owner engagement group, and that is going to be looking at the different resident types that we have, so renters, owner occupied, or landlords, and saying, how do we get them to invest in these sorts of improvements? And we recognize, of course, that level of engagement ranges. So trying to say what is going to work, what's going to motivate you, and how can we set that up?
So there's ways to get involved in different paths that get involved. Any other, how can the chapter be more involved in it?
So who do we contact if contact Aaron, I guess? Who do we contact if we're interested in doing something?
Well,
Contact me for the workers. I won't speak for the workers program.
Contact me for church we're still doing outreach to, for homeowners. We're looking for 3 more qualified homeowners for our demonstration project. So there are brochures with that information about channel folks through that.
How do you try getting lists together and where homeowners go? We've done 80,000 things. And they're constant. Usually 2-4 weeks out.
Yeah.
So, you know, that might be a resource for you to find people who want to go further than that program.
Right, right.
It's a great program. No questions, but very hard.
Right. That's a good lead. About to be evaluated. Is this a first evaluation? All right, so Dream John's kid back up there.
Did I turn it off? Well, it's an issue that's not going away, and
I was just gonna say, I mean, there's a need for perpetrators to participate in the program, and those people, it's like you're asking them to donate their services, but it's like so few people see the value. I mean, it's like I see the value of that, but many people do not. And these are actually people who can afford to make the changes, and they should be able to afford the evaluation.
yes.
Or if, and at best, I mean, I think that, you know, if the chapter was in a position to donate part of that fee, that would be great, but I don't think that we really are, although perhaps if we did more work, we would be able to get, you know, more sponsors and more funding for our organization. I do think that, you know, the people doing the actual work, I think it's great for like the inner city youth to work with contractors, but most of us as like architects or engineers, how can we contribute? And it seems like just weighing in on the political conversation and really working to help change policy, that's really the main issue, because you have, you know, homeowners is one issue, but yeah, like tenants and landlords, there's many landlords that just own these, they don't take care of them. Like energy efficiency isn't even the issue. It's like the house is leaking, like the roof blew off and is like laying in the parts of it have been in the yard for like 3 months, and people are calling me like, could you fit, you know, these are major issues that even if you could tackle the energy aspect of the home, you would need to spend, you know, it might be $5,000 for the energy, but it might be more like 10 and 20 to actually fix some major issues on the house, so your work doesn't go to waste. So I mean, I think that's sort of, I don't know what the IBM people thought of that, but there's actually like big issues with the actual structures themselves that are the bigger, maybe like bigger costing, and then how do you help people without helping the landlords that have just completely not done anything for years, and now they can't just like, oh, we'll give you a bunch of money because you're terrible. That's no good. So I think that's a really complex problem, but
Yeah, that's why we didn't start there.
Very, very complex problem. And short of saying that, changing the whole tax structure and things like that, that the landlord gets a break on property taxes. They do so much energy improvements. And that's really what it's going to take, is changing the societal norms to recognizing that it's important and it's cost savings if we do it.
right.
So, yeah, it's a big issue. We haven't solved it.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
Okay, yeah, we'll get there.
Well, the general thought is that, lead in terms of publicity, it's been 99% about commercial buildings, big office buildings, big apartment
exactly.
stuff, not about residential. And if we look at the future and with regard to global climate change, etc., really that is good because it will reduce the growth, the steepness of the curve. But in terms of getting to where we need to be, like the level of 1990 with CO2, that can only be possible by really working at the existing buildings and existing uses for them. And so even as the new buildings can be very more efficient, they add more CO2. We can't avoid at least the minimum amount anyway. So we have to take that out of the existing uses also. And so that's really crucial. And with regard to low-income people and renters, any program that requires an investment is pretty much a non-starter. These people are really concerned and desperate to make it to the next paycheck. And the concept of investment is something completely foreign and exotic to their whole mind frame. So I don't think that will work. And the only way to really get that to work easily, I think, would be by requiring utilities to have programs where they fund it and then they take it out of the next utility bills, and because they can
There are
control
some good
the
models for that.
yeah,
Yeah.
any kind of other sponsor of that doesn't have the leverage the opportunities that the utility company has, because even if these renters move out, somebody else will move in, and they can control that, and an individual renter or even homeowner cannot control it in the same fashion.
So I just want to butt in for a second. We're getting really close to 1 o'clock in the session, and we have time for maybe one more question. But I just want to point out that I passed out course evaluations for everyone. Please fill those out, leave them on the table, and on your way out, please grab a certificate for today. But if you have any more questions, I think we have time for one more. And
James, I think it would be appropriate for you to give a more detailed summary of what the chapter is doing for Weatherization Day.
okay.
And let people know how they can volunteer.
Sure. So on the 26th, we're having Weatherization Day. It's going to be kind of a 10 o'clock in the morning until 4 in the afternoon project. We have some volunteers from SEED, and we also have some student volunteers from the UT Architecture program. But basically, Home Depot is providing materials for this event. We're going to be providing some education in the morning. We're going to all meet at the SEED location. The address, I cannot know the address offhand. Dandridge Avenue.
1615 Dandridge Avenue. It's across the street from the Alex Haley's patio on Morningside Park.
Thank you. So 1615 Dandridge Avenue, we're going to be meeting there at 9 in the morning on the 26th, which is a Saturday. If you have any other questions, you can email the chapter at eastnusgbc@gmail.com, or check out our website, which is etnusgbc.org. And there's like a page for the Weatherization Day event. or you can talk to me afterwards and I can give you more detail. But it'll be a great event. We have a lot of people. Bruce is going to be our HERS rater for the day. We have some really good homeowners that we're helping out. They're real sweethearts. So yeah, thank you, Lisa. And I encourage everybody to get involved. If you can only put an hour in or so, that would still be great.
Are there any people in the room who can speak to how great it is to volunteer for Weatherization Day? Really? There is one?
You knew that. I've done two, a couple of years ago and the year before that. Really interesting because now I know what to do. I didn't know before. I have Bruce will contest to this. I have an extremely old house, it was off the scale when we had the blower door test done, so I needed to learn this stuff. So I was in the basement the first year and in the attic the second year. Really interesting. But be prepared to work.
And get dirty.
And get dirty. Yeah.
So that's about all the time we have. So I encourage if you have any other questions for the presenters or myself, please feel free to stay afterwards. Get some more food before you go. That'd be great. But otherwise, that brings us to 1 o'clock in the end of the session. Thank you, everyone.